Yeah. So then the other, so you brought up one thing you brought up there is you brought up time travel, and that I wanted to cover too
Yep.
because that's something people ask about. Is how does time work? And so we don't technically have time travel. You're not literally traveling. So people will say, oh, God exists outside of time. Therefore, the angels exist outside of time. But again, remember what I said, Colossians and Paul's talking about they didn't know what the plan was, or else they would not have crucified the Lord of Glory, you know.
Mm,
And so, if time travel is a thing for angels, then they just go back and don't crucify Jesus, and I mean, it just doesn't work. So, but your characters have existed throughout all of human history and into human future. So
and
those spiritual characters have been alive and existed through all that time. So we just suspend our disbelief on what level they are. That's the main thing. It's just, when you are playing a mission that is from a different point in time, you just say, hey, they existed during this time. We're not getting too caught up on what the order is. And that way it's like, oh, shoot, we're playing in modern day New York. I can't go back and do a Moses mission. It's like, no, you can. You can you feel free to hop around wherever you want in that. It's not technically time travel. It's just a slight suspension of disbelief, knowing that the characters existed in all that time, but we're just doing a snapshot of a storyline from that time. Yeah.
and another thing is too is that it's like how you were mentioning like how characters build history with each other.
Yeah.
Like that can carry over too. Like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
if if the host wants to be so serious to make it a continuous story, that's on him
Yeah.
or
That's
her.
on. That's on your GM. That's on
That's
your
on
host.
them.
And, yeah.
Like
And your
it
table. What your table enjoys.
exactly, yeah. It doesn't matter that much. It's a game.
Exactly.
Sit
It's
down
a
and have
game.
some fun, please. You know?
It's a fiction. Technically, it's a fantasy game. I mean,
Yeah,
we don't fall under. We do fall under fantasy in a lot of ways. We technically are fantasy, but most people when they say fantasy, they think high fantasy. So,
yeah, for sure.
but yeah, it's a fiction. It's a fictional story. Yep.
Yep, exactly. It's one of those things where things like that can be hand waved, but if the table decides to not hand wave it, then that's a table decision. Once
Exactly.
again, adding more flexibility to allies as opposed to other games where, it's just the setting is the setting, time is very
Yeah.
linear, like that's just the way it has to be. In order to tell a good story, like I mean, unless you're doing time travel that gets really convoluted
Sure.
and whatever, and I've done it once in my superhero campaign, and I'm already starting to think, oh, is that a good idea? But we'll get into that later. Well, sorry, let me rephrase that. I'll get into that
Yeah.
later because they haven't experienced it yet. Hopefully, it works out well. We'll see. Um. Anyways, oh man, I just realized it's basically Terminator. Oh well, I'll deal with that later. I have a killer robot. I was like sent from the future and back
Are
in
they going
time.
back to prevent a child from being born?
No, that's not
Oh, okay.
happening.
Okay.
It's a whole thing. I don't want to explain the entire story right
We could
now
do
because
Terminator Allies, like that skit where they have him go back and try to keep Jesus from being crucified.
oh my gosh, stop killing Judas!
I'm supposed to die. Quit saving me.
You just
It's all
don't
part
kill.
of the plan. Why?
Oh my gosh, it's
Because
like
that's what I came here to do. Why?
why? One of my
Anyway.
absolute favorite scenes is that, like at the very end, when like the Terminator is comforting Mary, and he's like, "Don't worry, he'll be back."
Yes.
It's like perfect. Put a pin in it and move on with your
Right at
life.
the end. That's great. Oh,
Oh,
man.
it's so
Anyway.
good. Anyways, yeah, if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend that skit. That's
In Living Color is
pretty
the, I
good.
believe. Yep.
Yeah, I think so.
Yep.
So yeah, but like yeah, when it boils down to it, it's a game. Have fun. As long as everyone's having fun, turns
Yeah.
out you're doing your job real good there, Mr. Host.
Yeah.
Like, that's
Yeah.
what it boils down
Yep.
to.